Hello, and we want to welcome all of you to today's online travel presentation, Best Luxury Rail Tours. My name is Kristen, and I will be your moderator for today's presentation. We understand this is not an easy time to travel, but this is a perfect time to start cracking open those travel books and prepping where you want to be. Before we begin today's travel presentation, I would like to go over a few things. First, we will hold all questions until the end. If you do have questions during the presentation, please type them in the question box in the GoToWebinar toolbar, and we will cover them at the end. Second, we will have 2 questions during the presentation, and we encourage you to participate by submitting your answer in the GoToWebinar question box. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and will be available after the presentation. So first, I'm going to take a moment to introduce ourselves. My name is Kristen, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Vacations by Rail and the moderator for this online travel presentation. And shortly, you will meet Frank, Vacations by Rail's rail specialist and your presenter today. We're going to start with our first question to get to know you a bit more. Have you ever taken a rail vacation? So go ahead and submit your answer in the GoToWebinar question box. All right, so I'm seeing some answers come in now, and if you haven't gotten your answer, no worries, just keep submitting them. The more information, the more for us, the better. The answers here are a good mix of yes and no, which is great, because whether you have or have not taken a rail vacations, we'll show you some really amazing luxury rail products that will hopefully give you some inspiration for your next adventure. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Vacations by Rail, a little bit about us. In addition to the wide variety of vacations that we offer around the globe, we also offer best-in-class customer care with a dedicated rail specialist to assist you from your first call until you return home from your vacation. We are the leading rail vacations company in the United States, offering the largest selection of independent rail vacations, escorted rail tours, rail cruise combinations, and luxury rail journeys. We are the trusted authority on rail, a member of the National Tour Association and the American Bus Association with a Better Business Bureau A+ rating. We are also AARP's preferred rail provider. We're a great rail journeys company backed by more than 45 years of experience in the specialty of global rail vacations. And we deliver unmatched vacations and first-class service to destinations around the globe. We also offer extensive vacation options aboard the world's most iconic trains. So why take a rail vacation? It's a unique way to see parts of the country not accessible through other modes of transportation. You leave the navigation and driving to someone else. You mix iconic trains with fantastic destinations and improved sightseeing. Rail travel is an integral part of the vacation experience, not just a travel component. There's no need to stop for meals or overnight accommodations. Everything is available for you from start to finish. A rail vacation is a good way to meet people from all over the globe, and it's a more eco-friendly way of traveling. Rail travel uses less carbon emission than other modes of transportation. So let's talk about what you get in every Vacations by Rail vacation. You get comfortable accommodations centrally located within national parks or in the heart of large cities. You get comprehensive sightseeing offering one-of-a-kind of experiences. You get insider experiences and local expertise. And you get exceptional customer service from agents who specialize in rail. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Frank, one of Vacations by Rail's amazing rail specialists. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you. Okay, I'm here to talk about luxury train travel. And we'll talk about some very famous trains here. We have some images here of some of them. But the things they have in common are the meals, the service, 24-hour service, and a 5-star experience. Get sumptuous crisp linens and fabrics, authentically decorated trains there, rich wood tones, gleaming flatware. And no aspect has been overlooked on these hotels on wheels, which is really what they are. Revel in first-class service from start to finish, including gourmet meals and attentive onboard staff members who meet every need. As the route unfolds, watch the scenery transform from your personal quarters or from the comfortable lounge cars, which are perfect for meeting fellow travelers or enjoying a nightcap. Now, these are the trains we're talking about today. On the top left is the Grand Hibernian, which travels through Ireland. The middle top picture is the Royal Scotsman, obviously travels through Scotland. The upper right is the Trans-Siberian Express. And then the two lower pictures, the one on the left is the Orient Express. And of course, as you can see, part of Africa right there. These trains are very famous, and you think luxury travel and you think, well, I can't afford that. But considering what is included, you really get your money's worth. I don't think this is unattainable for anyone listening here. And these are experiences that you'll remember for the rest of your life. I mean, this is the ultimate in train travel, and where they go are some of the most exotic locations on Earth. And you won't merely be in a luxury bubble. All these trains provide amazing excursions. So you're not just whizzing by these locations in your luxurious quarters. You get off the train and they provide unforgettable experiences. The things that all these trains have in common are, of course, the five-star food service. Just an amazing food. You wouldn't. This is like the fanciest restaurant you've ever been in. Beautiful quarters. Some of the best, if not the best, accommodations, sleeping accommodations you could find on any trains on Earth. 24-hour service from the staff, a very attentive service, and of course, these amazing locations that they go to. First one we're going to talk about today is the Grand Hibernian. I mentioned it goes through Ireland. This is a great way to see Ireland. This train does use some heritage rail lines that were mothballed when the Irish train system was streamlined in the middle of the last century. So you will go to places that are a little bit off the beaten path. So let's look at the itinerary here. As you can see, it's 6 nights, 7 days. Begins and ends in Dublin, and the departures are through the pleasant weather months there. Now, highlights of this trip include a visit to the Jameson Distillery, which is great. I mean, Irish whiskey, it's you have to have it, and when you're there, you do go for a tasting and a tour of the distillery. You also go to Cork. There's a very large market there, which you will get a tour of, a walking tour of, which concludes in a beautiful meal at one of the establishments at the market. Also included is a visit to Hillsborough Castle and the Irish Emigration Museum. If you are of Irish descent, there's about a 9 in 10 chance that your ancestors left from that spot. It's a very beautiful, very moving museum. I am half Irish, and I visited that museum, and it's a great place. So you can tour that. And you also get a tour of Westport House. This is just an example of some of the excursions. Westport House is a country manor, and while there, you could indulge in things that you would imagine on a country estate. We're talking archery, horseback riding. You could simply tour the gardens, have tea in the castle. Also included is a jaunting ride. Now, a jaunting is an Irish two-person horse-drawn carriage. So you do get a jaunting ride in Killarney, and a boat trip on Loch Lean, excuse me. That's beautiful. You do visit a castle there, a sunken castle, Rossmore Castle, I believe. And no trip to Ireland would be complete without a visit to the Cliffs of Moher, the stunning Cliffs of Moher. And there's also an excursion to an Irish farm, which is very interesting. So as you can see, you're going to get not just, you'll get to see some authentic experiences. This is not just a luxury trip. It's an emotionally and culturally enriching trip. And yeah, I mean, this is, and also every night people come on board. Local historians tell stories about where you're visiting, and and where you're traveling through. And also local musicians come on board at night after dinner and will entertain with local music in the lounge car. Now here's some images here, some of the excursions, places you'll be going to on this itinerary. Obviously, those are the Cliffs of Moher on the left right there. Stunning Cliffs of Moher, a lot of walking involved on that excursion. You could opt to go in the lower right-hand corner, that's Westmore House. Those excursions occur on the same day. So you could choose either excursion. So if you want something a little more leisurely, you would go to Westmore. Up on the right, that's the beginning and end point there, that's Dublin. Galway on the lower left, and there's Ross Castle on Loch Lean. Right? And this is a great way to see Ireland. Again, if you're of Irish descent, or even if not, if you're not of Irish descent, the Irish people and the Irish countryside is obviously notoriously beautiful, and you could do it all in style on the Grand River. So let's move to the next train here. It's the Royal Scotsman. Now, I've been to Scotland twice. I've been to Ireland, but I've been to Scotland twice. I actually took my honeymoon in Scotland. A lot of people talk about Norway and Switzerland as being, scenically beautiful, the beautiful natural scenery. A lot of people give Scotland short shrift. I think the scenery in Scotland is just as astounding. I think people will be really surprised, especially when you get up into the north of the country, which this does. The scenery is just astounding. You're talking towering cliffs, beautiful vast glens, and fog-shrouded lochs. It is a beautiful, beautiful country, and the Scotland's classic splendors is one of their most popular itineraries. You'll see why. Here's the itinerary here. And as you can see, it's 4 nights, 5 days, but a lot is included in those 4 nights and 5 days. So you will be seeing a lot. In Gar, if you do go to the Glen Ord Distillery, just a word here. I had the pleasure of going to the Oban Distillery, and getting the tour there, and these tours of the distilleries by the locals there are really, really engaging. They really feel deeply about their product, and Scotch whiskey is Scotland because they have hundreds of single malt distilleries around Scotland. Okay, and each place has a distinct flavor. They all have their own patented design of a still, and where they get their water depends on how the Scotch tastes. At the Glen Ord Distillery, you've got the Speyside Distillery, which means it's along the River Spey. So the water that runs down the hills through the heather, which they collect for their Scotch, does flavor their Scotch. So you're not only tasting Scotch, you're tasting the town. The history of Scotch is the history of Scotland. And of course, at the conclusion, you do get a tasting. When I was at Oban, there were 12 of us from France, Germany, the United States, and they have 6 varieties of Scotch at Oban. And by the time we got to the third glass, everyone at the table were best friends and talking, as you can imagine. So that's going to be a great excursion. You do get to go to a lot of other places too. You go to Cairngorms National Park there. You visit a lot of sunken castles and some working castles, which I'll talk about here. Here's the highlights of the tour. So here's some of the excursions. You can do a seal watching boat trip, or visit Island Donan Castle, which is a ruined castle, but it's very beautiful. Ballinadloch, that is for golf aficionados or golf fanatics. That's kind of a Valhalla right there. People talk about St. Andrews, but a lot of people think that golf was invented at Ballinadloch Castle. And when you go there, you can play golf. They have an extensive golf course. So if that interests you, that would be a great excursion. You also get a visit to Rhodomarcus Estate. We do those country pursuits. They have a falconer there, and they have a demonstration with lots of things to do there. And then, interestingly enough, you also go to Glamis Castle. Glamis Castle is an operating castle. It was the home to the Queen Mother for 40 years. Once she passed away, it passed into the hands of the Earl and Countess of Strathmore. you will be hosted by the Earl and Countess when you visit Glamis, where you could indulge in archery, clay pigeon shooting, but visiting the gardens around Glamis is a big highlight because the Glamis gardens are famous. They're considered probably the most beautiful gardens in all of the United Kingdom. So here are some images here. There's Cairngorms up in the upper left. That is the interior in the upper right of the rear observation car on the Royal Scotsman. Below that is Glamis Castle. There's Ballindollach on the lower right. There's the view from the rear observation car of the train. And there's Perth on the left. There is a walking tour of Perth included in this. The Scottish people, like the Irish people, are just wonderful. You do get a historian that boards the train here too, and I would recommend sitting yourself right next to this person. I had the good luck when I visited Scotland of being seated across a woman named Lynn MacDonald, who is the matriarch of the MacDonald clan, the most famous clan in all of Scotland. I had a long train ride up to Fort William, and we talked for hours, and she regaled me with stories of Scotland's history, the history of her clan. Her clan was the subject of, or is the subject of the most famous Scottish folk song. It's the Massacre of Glencoe. Very famous incident. Briefly, I'll just tell you. The MacDonald family were warring with a rival clan. The rival clan called a truce and invited them all to dinner one night, but it was a ruse. They ended up slaughtering most of the MacDonald clan. The surviving members of the clan spread out into the mountains of Glencoe and hid out to survive. This happened at the turn of the previous century, so this was just over 100 years ago. This shocked not only the world, but Scotland, and put an end once and for all to all this clan rivalry. You'll be lucky enough probably to get some very enriching stories when you seat yourself next to the historian on this train. And like the Grand Hibernian, local musicians do come on board at night and entertain. Great way to see Scotland. All right, so we'll go to the next train here. This is probably, without a doubt, actually, the most famous train that we'll be talking about today. This is the Orient Express. The classic route is, of course, Paris to Istanbul, and the train does make this run about once a year. That was the route that Agatha Christie was on when she got trapped in the mountains in the snow and wrote Murder on the Orient Express. If you've ever seen the movie, the 1974 movie, not the remake, the train will look exactly like you see it in the movie. The train has been restored to its original splendor, and it's historically accurate, and it's the paramount of luxury. Now, we're not taking the classic route. This is their most popular route. This actually includes two classic trains. So let's look at the route here. You start in London and you take the British Pullman. This is another very famous luxury train. So you start from London, and then when you get to Dover, obviously you have to cross the English Channel. What happens is they board you on luxury motor coaches, and the luxury motor coaches are then driven onto a transport high-speed rail train. You cross under the channel, and when you emerge at Calais is where you then meet the Orient Express. You visit Paris and Geneva before overnighting in Montreux, Switzerland. Of course, that's going to be a 5-star hotel right along the shores of Geneva then. And then you make your way to Venice. You spend a few nights in Venice, and we'll talk about the sightseeing in Venice. You only spend one night aboard the train. That's when you're coming back towards London. One thing to note, the train is historically accurate. So therefore, there are no queen beds. It is an upper and lower berth in the sleeping accommodations, and a shared bathroom down the hall. This is, of course, the height of luxury, though. So if you're thinking shared bathroom, this is going to be a splendid bathroom. So let's look at the highlights here. Of course, the meals, like all these trains, the meals are going to be, it's like a 5-star restaurant. I mentioned the British Pullman there. Now, when you arrive in Venice, you do get an extensive walking tour of the city. So you're going to see everything. St. Mark's Square, you're going to go all around the palace. This day concludes with a sumptuous meal at a Venetian palace. The following day, you get a gondola ride around the canals. That's a half-day excursion. You'll be done by lunchtime or so. You have the evening to yourself. Um, and I would recommend taking a water taxi to one of the islands like Murano or Burano, um, or Judaica. You'll find the best food there on that island, and stunning views of the city. Um, so you could go to places where Venetians go to eat. And yes, there are still local Venetians. So yeah, so you get a lot of sightseeing, but you also get some time on your own. Included in this package are 12 meals, hotels for 4 nights. All transportation when you're not on the train is done by deluxe motor coach, and of course first class travel on the Eurostar and the British Pullman Evergrande Express. This is a great way to go through the continent in style and see some of its most beautiful cities. Let's move on to the next train here. Now, my best friend in the world, she's in travel. She took this train 2 years ago. She is not easily impressed, but this blew her mind. Trust me, I sat through hundreds of beautiful photographs she's a photographer. The excursions, especially on this one, she called them life-changing. And she has vivid memories of falling asleep aboard the train and hearing the roar of lions in the night outside her window. So let's look at the itinerary here. So as you can see, it's 14 nights, 15 days. Johannesburg ends in Cape Town. You do see a lot here. You go to a lot of nature parks, and you see a lot of Africa here. This is a 15-day trip, as I said. And you go all the way to Cape of Good Hope. A really impressive trip. Really, really great way to see Africa here. The highlights here, you go to game drives with your camera. So you will have 3 parks here. So lots of chances to take up close pictures of wild animals. You are in the wild and you will see lions. You will see elephants. They will be up close. This is going to be a spectacular experience. You get guided tours of Durban and Spine Cup. These are beautiful towns. Krishna's Featherbed Reserve. That reserve there, that nature reserve, most South Africans have never been to that. It's kind of hard to get to. It's reachable only by ferry, but that is included here. You do see the Christenbach Botanical Gardens, Cape Town, Table Mountain, and Robben Island. You do also, when you're at the Cape of Good Hope, board the Flying Dutchman Funicular Railroad. That goes all the way up the Cape, up to the Cape Lighthouse. This is, of course, where Vasco da Gama found the trade route to the east there. And it's where you can see 2 oceans, the Indian and Atlantic, meet at that point. This package includes 36 meals. That includes 14 breakfasts, 12 lunches, 10 dinners, all wine, beer, and drinks on board the Pride of Africa. By the way, all these trains have an open bar, so all drinks are included. And select transfers, and you also get a tour manager. So you have the services of a tour manager at your disposal. And this is just a beautiful trip. Let's look at some images here. These are the game parks here. So that's the Mackay Game Reserve in the upper left. There's Featherbed in the upper right. There's Johannesburg right below. Right below that is Pretoria. And then Kruger National Park, which has a very high concentration of lions. And then there's the Cape of Good Hope on the lower left. A great way to see Africa. Next, we're going to talk about probably the second most famous train on this presentation here. This is the Trans-Siberian Express. A feat of engineering in its time. It's still mind-boggling that they built a train route across the entirety of Russia. And this is a trip that you could boast to your friends about, because you will see exotic locales like you never imagined. And because the country of Russia is so vast and has so many cultures, it's like entering a different country when you go to each of these towns. And let's look at the itinerary. This starts in Moscow, and there is a tour of Moscow, including the Kremlin, Red Square, and St. Basil's Cathedral. We then go on to Kazan aboard the train, and the train's going to have different levels of accommodations. Excuse me. All of it's luxury, but you can either get a grand stateroom where you have a queen bed, or you could do the upper and lower. All meals aboard the train, of course. And as you can see in the itinerary, you go really, 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 really far. If you look right by Lake Baikal, which is the largest lake in Asia, it's the second largest lake on Earth, just behind Lake Victoria. You will stop by Lake Baikal, and if you have a swimsuit, take a dip. You will be there all day. There's a barbecue lakeside. The train stops. And then you can see here, there's a little icon of an airplane. That's because the tracks are not passable there. So between Ulan-Ude and Ulaanbaatar, there is a flight included, and then you rejoin the Trans-Siberian Express from Ulaanbaatar to Vladivostok. And that long leg is through Siberia. Now you'll be going, I mean, obviously you're going through Mongolia, Siberia. Siberia, people have, you know, images of people being exiled to Siberia as this barren place. It is not. This train has been taken by everyone from Vladimir Lenin to David Bowie. One of my heroes, Cole Porter, the songwriter Cole Porter, a very well-traveled man, took this train, and he said Siberia, in particular, was one of the most beautiful places he had ever seen. On this long leg of the trip here, there's lots of entertainment on board. You have a historian as well, and you can even learn Russian. There is a Russian teacher, so if you want to brush up on your Russian, you can do so. And then here are some of the highlights here. As I mentioned, there's tours in Moscow, Novosibirsk, and Vladivostok, visits to Kazan, Yekaterinburg, got a tour of Irkutsk, and Ulan-Ude and Ulaanbaatar cultural visits. So you get 12 nights on the train. You get hotels for 2 nights. There's 41 meals included, including that barbecue I talked about by Lake Baikal. There's airport transfers and also a tour manager. Let's look at some images from this. Now that's Ulaanbaatar, the big picture on the upper left. Yekaterinburg, named after Catherine the Great, of course, in the upper right-hand corner. Below is Kazan. This is a mosque that was built about 10 years ago. It's one of the largest mosques on Earth. It is amazing. You do get a tour of this. Lower left, that's Lake Baikal, but that's Lake Baikal in winter. When you are there, it will be summertime. It will be thawed. You could swim in the lake. It won't look like that. There's Vladivostok next to it. I believe that's Cathedral of the Ascension or Inception. I don't know. I have to think about that one. And then in the lower right-hand corner is Irkutsk. It will not look like that. There's snow on the ground in that picture. It's going to be summertime when you visit. This is a great tour just because, as I said, you will be visiting cultures so varied, so different in each of these places. And it really is an experience of a lifetime. So just a little side note, we do have 5-star river cruising. A lot of our tours can be combined with a river cruise. So your luxury adventure doesn't have to be limited to the land. You can enjoy a relaxing trip aboard an excellent floating hotel, cruising along the rivers of Northern Europe. All these boats have charming interiors, impeccable service, 5-star catering. It's a great way to experience the natural human beauty of Europe as you relax, sleep, or dine against these spectacular backdrops and wonderful scenery. Enjoy the serene tranquility that only a river cruise can bring. Amenities on board include restaurants serving international and domestic food, a panoramic bar with specifically designed windows, a fitness suite and hair salon, On top of the ship is a sun deck with deck games, lounges, deck chairs. Each cabin has a television, an ensuite bathroom, a walk-in wardrobe, and a mini bar. And all suites have walkout exterior balconies. Um, we do a lot of cruises down the Rhine, down the Danube. This is the Rhine, I believe, because that looks like the town of Bacharach to me, which I've been to. I recognize that steeple. Like I said, it's a great way to see all these little towns around the river here, but then go into the interior of these countries via train. So I'm going to switch this back to Kristen. Are you still there? Or should I talk about
thanks, Frank. Yeah, do you want to tell them a little bit about how they can upgrade their experience and make these trips? These trips are already very luxurious, but why don't you tell them a little bit about how they can make it even more so?
Well, they can. I mean, obviously, the whole train is an upgrade. So it's upgrades are kind of, but they can be obtained here and there. And that's, like on some of these trains, like the Trans-Siberian or the Royal Scotsman, there are different types of accommodations aboard the trains. You could certainly go for a grand suite, a connecting suite, or just a regular room. I mean, you're on the train anyway, you're having a luxury experience. It's just a little extra money just to upgrade your experience aboard the train. You can also do pre and post nights, which are obviously recommended on a lot of these trips. Like for instance, going to South Africa, that's a 30-hour flight from North America. So a pre-night in Moscow would be highly recommended. Hotels could be upgraded. When I took the Royal Scotsman, I stayed at the Balmoral. That's what the train usually uses, because the Balmoral it sits atop Waverley Station. So I had a beautiful room at the Balmoral. I simply checked out of my hotel, and there was the train personnel waiting right there to check me onto my train. So you could always get a nice suite at a hotel before and after your trip. And so yeah, there are upgrades to be had here and there. And I figure I'm of the mind that you're already on this luxury train experience. You might as well pay a little bit. It's such a little bit extra to actually upgrade that experience even more. So you're here doing this anyway. Why not, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much, Frank.
You're welcome.
And I will move it on to our next question. So what we want to know now is what interests you most about a luxury rail vacation. So Frank covered a lot of wonderful highlights of each trip and what we offer on our luxury packages. So we just want to know a little bit about what interests you the most from anything Frank talked about, or if anything that may also interest you that you'd like to know more about. We'd love to know about that. So feel free to let us know in the GoToWebinar question box. I'll give you a few seconds to submit your answers. I see some coming in already. Give you a few more seconds. So far, we're getting a lot of answers that are saying the onboard accommodations, which is fantastic, which is a great answer because these luxury rail lines are known for the best in class accommodations. And as Frank said, they're all 5 stars. So you really can't get much better than what is included in these packages. And they do truly care about their travelers, and they do just want to offer the best for their travelers. It's just a truly special experience. So if you still have more information, more insight, please feel free to submit that. Anything helps us understand what you'd like to know more about your next vacation, but I'm going to move on. If you want to learn more about destinations, costs, itineraries, and more, you can go online or call a rail specialist to request any of our available brochures. These are what we have available now, but we do often update and change out the catalogs that we provide. So also be sure to keep a lookout on any new catalogs that we have. You can request a brochure or get more information by calling us at 877-929-7245 or by going online at vacationsbyrail.com. So now we're just going to open it up for some questions that you had during the presentation. Frank will be super helpful with this and answer any of the questions. As a reminder, please submit any questions in the GoToWebinar question box. For the sake of time, we will only get to a few, so if you don't hear your question answered today, no worries. A rail specialist will reach out to you after the presentation to make sure your question gets answered. So Frank, we're going to kick it off with our first question. How many weeks prior should a trip be reserved?
Oh gosh, well, I would say weeks. I would say months, only because some of these trips don't have a lot of departures, and there's limited space aboard the train because there are very large suites. So I would book this as far in advance as you possibly can. That's just because people want to take these trips. These are very popular, and space is limited. So as soon as you come to a decision, I would book.
Great. Yeah, that's a good idea. I agree. This next question is, how will luggage be handled?
Well, in some cases, obviously, when you're taking your excursions, your luggage will be aboard the train, so you don't have to worry about it. But you know, when I took the Royal Scotsman, as I said, someone was there to greet me at the platform, and they checked my luggage, and a porter took it away. And you could either follow your luggage to your accommodations, or you could simply just unencumbered swan onto the train and hang out in the lounge car and have a drink and wait for the train to pull out. Luggage is handled at all times on excursions if needed. For instance, when you have to take that plane on the Trans-Siberian Express, your luggage will be ported for you. There will be a porter there to take it. So you really need not to worry about having to drag your luggage around. The only time you would is gosh, when you're getting out of the airport or going into the airport. So they really take care of everything.
Awesome. Thank you. The next question is, do I have to pick any extra excursions in advance?
You do. All these trains require you to choose an excursion in advance. However, once aboard the train, if you feel like taking another excursion instead of the one you pick, because there's a choice. Most of the stops, especially on the first two we spoke of, the Grand Hibernian and the Royal Scotsman, they give you a choice of one or two, two or three excursions a day, right? If on the day you want to take, you're like, I don't want to go there, I want to go here instead, of course you can. You do have to take an excursion, though. You cannot stay aboard the train on the Grand Hibernian. On the Royal Scotsman, they do let you stay on the train. So if you don't wish to take an excursion, you don't have to. Same thing on the Trans-Siberian Express. If you wish to stay aboard the train and sit out that day's excursion, you may. But on the Orient Express and on the Grand Hibernian, you must leave the train. But like I said, the day of, if you wish to change your mind, they certainly will let you.
Great, thank you so much. And our last question for today is there a dress code on any of these trains?
Not officially, but one I want to mention is the Royal Scotsman. It's an unofficial dress code. Think of it this way. If you were going out to a five-star restaurant, would you wear gym shoes and a t-shirt and a ball cap? Probably not. That is frowned upon, even though it's not an official dress code. People do dress for dinner, and especially aboard the Royal Scotsman, there are two dinners that are formal. They're officially formal, which means men are requested to wear a tuxedo. Now, if you don't have a tuxedo hanging in your closet or you don't wish to rent one, a jacket and a tie will suffice. So obviously use your common sense, dress for dinner. Yeah, but nothing official. But like I said, on the Royal Scotsman, men are not required, but are asked to wear a tuxedo on two of the evenings. On the rest of the trains, simply use your common sense. Wear a jacket at dinner. I mean, women don't have to wear ball gowns or anything, but dress like you were going to a nice restaurant.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Frank. And again, if you didn't hear your question answered today, that's nothing to worry about. A rail specialist will reach out to you within the next few days to make sure you get the information you need. But for the sake of time, I'm going to wrap up our online presentation for today. Thank you so much for attending. We look forward to sending you a brochure that you requested or hearing from you by calling us at 877-929-7245. If you'd like to receive a call from one of our rail specialists to answer your question about these destinations or otherwise, please leave a callback number in the GoToWebinar question box and someone will be in touch. Be sure to be on the lookout for our special offer exclusively for webinar attendees as well. Also, be sure to keep an eye out for more information on next week's online presentation, Discover Western Canada, on Tuesday, June 23rd. So that's about it for us, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. We hope to see you again soon.
Thanks,
Have
Kristen.
a great day. Thanks, Frank.